As the new Director General will face, the subject of the job's pay was discussed by a committee of MPs today. In particular, the £450,000 severance package for George Entwistle, who was forced to resign over the false claims made by Newsnight about Lord McAlpine. BBC trustee Anthony Fry suggested that George Entwistle's decision to resign may not have been entirely voluntary.
I think it would be fair to say and characterise the position of the BBC Trust at the end of that meeting, which was around about 3:45 in the afternoon, that were the Director General to tender his resignation, the BBC Trust would not resist such an application by the Director General. It is clear from what happened subsequently that the Director General left that meeting with a very clear impression that he no longer carried the support or the full support of the BBC Trust.
So should he have been paid £450,000 to go? Well, I asked the employment lawyer Nicholas Lakeland what he thought of the payout made to George Entwistle on his resignation.
I'm sure licence fee payers may feel that the figure is too high, but it's all relative, isn't it? If you're a high earner in a very responsible position as he was, clearly any payout is going to be commensurate to your salary.
But the argument around his contract goes that what he was entitled to after resigning was $225,000, and he would only have got the $450,000 if he'd been sacked.
Well, that's absolutely right, but the devil's in the detail. If one looks at the letter written by Lord Patten to the chairman of the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee, John Whittingdale, it emerges that in fact there was a two-way notice period, or two different periods of notice. It was 6 months if Mr Entwistle wanted to resign, and it was 12 months if the BBC wanted to sack him. So I'm quite sure the conversation went thus: I would be happy to resign, but I'm not going to unless I get more than my basic 6-month notice period, to which the answer would be, well, how about we pay you your 12 months? Would that satisfy you? Because that would get rid of the problem as quickly as possible. So there would have been a negotiation. I'm sure Mr Entwistle would have been advised not to resign and to let the BBC sack him, because that would have been a more difficult situation for BBC to have to face. So actually, it wasn't that difficult a negotiation, in my view.
How does this kind of settlement compare with what would happen in the private sector?
It's not unusual, to be perfectly blunt. I mean, if you are a senior person in a highly paid job, the settlements are large. And frankly, a lot more money would be paid out in the public sector. Ultimately, these jobs are hard to come by, so Mr Entwistle will struggle to get a job very quickly because senior positions are relatively rare. It will probably take him at least a year and a half to get into paid employment, and therefore you need a substantial sum of money to tide you over for that period of time.
The employment lawyer Nicholas Lakeland.